Okay, now that we have our scenes, we can look at this again. We can say I have the scene on frame 1 with the button there, and you'll see it changes if we go to 30 and then 35. Okay, now we need to add the interaction. So we want to have this be a button, and for every frame, it will move us to the next scene. Okay, so what we're going to use in this is the feature in CS 5.5, which is the code snippets. Okay, and this is something that is new to the software. So if you don't have 5.5, you won't see them, but it's possible you could use the code that is generated from this. So if you create the document within CS 5.5 and then you go back a version or two of Flash, you still could render this out fine because the code is still ActionScript 3. It's just that with the code snippets, it's just a bunch of helpers that you can use to create your scripting. Okay, and what this introduces is the code component of Flash. Okay, we'll look at this now. So we'll start with looking at the actions, and then we'll go to code snippets. So if I open this up, you can see now we have this editing window, and you can see this is blank right now because we don't have anything on this particular keyframe. And whenever we create new actions or working with code, we want to separate this out from our drawings because this is something that will be controlling these clips, and we don't want it to be interfering with the drawings we made. Okay, so I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this the actions layer. Okay, and then on frame 1, I'm going to put something that will stop the animation. And the reason I'm doing that is that naturally, since if we have a timeline, Flash will play through the timeline. That's just a default. It will do that all the time. So if you want to have something clicked on in a scene, you need to stop the movie to give it time for that to be clicked. Okay, so now that we created the stop, people can now click on the area that needs to be clicked on and then go to the next area. Okay, so by putting the stops in the code, we can add some interaction to the object. So we want to have a stop on frame 1, a stop on frame 30, and then also keyframe here, and a stop on frame 35. Okay, so now we have that for each one. Now we can add in our snippet, and you can see that this is located here, so we can go right to it. We can also go right to it right here also. Okay, so I'm going to click on Code Snippets, and there's a bunch of things in here. We're going to go directly to this timeline navigation. And what we're going to, you can see here that this right here is just what we did by typing. It creates this bit of code. We're going to use this go to frame and stop as our code. Okay, so we're going to double click on this, and see here it requires an object. Okay, and the reason what this is doing is it wants to attach this to the object because it is a click. Okay, so you're creating a mouse click, so it needs to know how to create this action. Okay, so we need to select on the object. So make sure you're on 1. Okay, and then click on the object that you want to use for the interaction, and then you can double click on this, and here it's going to rename this for you, which is fine. You can rename it to something that you want, or you can keep it to what it's naming. And now you can see in that same area with the stop, it's also added a bit of code here that says we're adding a button, and what this button is a mouse event, and it's going to access a function called click to go frame and stop. Okay, and that function will then move us to frame 5. Okay, we don't want to go to frame 5 then. We want to go to frame 30. So we just can change this, and now we would go to frame 30. Okay. So if we go here, And we can do that for this one just as well. So we'll click on this frame. We'll go to frame and stop. Here it changed the button, so we now have button 2. And we want to now go to frame 35. That's the next one. And then it's going to stop here. And then we want to just create a loop. So we'll go to frame and stop, button 3. And we want this to go back to 1. Because since we're working in interaction, timeline is secondary, moving linear. We can kind of play around with this and move where we want to. So you could have it go back and forth in this for, a bit major part of your project if you wanted to. Okay, so now we have that set. Let's play it back. So we go up to Control, and we need to test out the movie this way. If we use this play, I never really like to use that for actually playing it back. We just go to Test here. Okay, so now we have the scene. We click as we roll over on the stump. We can click and go to the next scene, and then click, go to the next scene. So now we have a little looping scene. Okay. All right, so that's the basics of what we're going to get into. And if you have any questions, please email me. Thanks.